The spoilers for the Monday, February 9th episode of Beyond the Gates center on the sudden return of Haley's so-called friend. And Lynette appears to be working a scheme designed to outplay a con artist. Will she actually pull it off? Meanwhile, Chelsea shocks Bill with major news, and Grayson reveals details about the mysterious phone call he received in Friday's episode. Key points to remember. Lynette rolls out a new tactic that puts Haley on the defensive. Chelsea drops a bombshell about Bill, and possibly about Donnie and Andre as well. Grayson opens up about the mysterious call. Jen tries to make peace between Leslie and Derek. Haley has grown used to living on high alert, but this time it feels like an old blade has been sharpened again and pressed straight against her throat. No shouting, no spoken threats. Only a single piece of paper with $17,000 printed on it, sitting in the middle of a desk, and that is enough to make her feel the past crawling out of the shadows. Lynette arrives as the kind of person who never accidentally shows up, and certainly never carries an invoice just to vent. The way she walks into Bill's law office, the way she chooses the exact hour Haley cannot afford to ignore. The way she makes sure the staff see her behaving as if she and Haley share a history. Everything about it feels staged, a setup meant to force Haley into the same old reflexes. Hide it. Smooth it over by silence, given so the noise stops. Haley understands perfectly that a debt owed to someone like Lynette is never really about the number on the bill. It is about the power of making another person bow. $17,000 may be nothing more than a legal excuse, a perfect entry ticket that lets Lynette approach Haley under the bright lights of legitimacy. Turning blackmail into helping a friend, turning control into a favor, turning a threat into something you owe me, Haley finds herself trapped in a brutal question. If this were truly just legal fees, why wouldn't Lynette run the way people living outside the law usually do? Instead of placing the invoice directly in Haley's hands like she is signing an invisible contract, forcing Haley to take her back, take the past back. Take everything Haley tried to bury in order to become Bill's wife. That is what enrages Haley most. Lynette is not just after money. She wants her own existence to function as living evidence, a ghost that can materialize in front of Bill at any time and remind him that the young, polished woman he chose comes with a history that cannot be scrubbed clean by designer dresses and a smile at charity parties. Haley hates the sensation of being dragged backward into an old role, hates the way Lynette looks at her like a former partner turned traitor, like prey who escaped the trap. And she hates most the truth that she still understands the language of scams the way she understands her own breathing. Lynette knows too much, and knowing too much is always worth more than cash. It is a weapon that can collapse a marriage, shove a man like Bill into suspicion, or worse, make him start wondering whether everything he is building stands on an artificial foundation. Haley can already picture Bill's eyes if he sees Lynette's name in a file, if he asks, "Who is she?" And Haley is forced to answer with a story clean enough not to burn everything down, but real enough not to create fresh lies that leave fresh fingerprints. Haley has lived long enough to understand this. With powerful men, suspicion does not need proof, it only needs a strange scent. And Lynette is exactly that strange scent, sealed inside lawful paperwork, nearly impossible to remove without leaving a stain. Haley's problem is that she cannot strike openly, because any visible attack could turn Lynette into a victim, Haley into the guilty party, and Bill into the man who realizes he has been played. But if Haley does nothing, Lynette will advance anyway, step by step, using old familiarity like a tightening wire. Lynette does not need to scream, and she does not need to flash a knife. She only has to casually mention a detail here and there, accidentally appear in places Haley cannot avoid. Leave vague hints about the old days when she and Haley used to work, and every time she does it, Haley will have to check her heartbeat, clamp her mouth shut, calculate whether she should move first to shut Lynette down. Haley's anger does not explode into loud rage. It forms into cold, heavy ice, and every thought turns into strategy. If Lynette chose the moment Haley became Bill's wife to resurface, then Lynette has been watching, planning, waiting until Haley had the most to lose. That pushes Haley into an even more frightening possibility. Lynette did not return by coincidence. She may have been pushed back into Haley's orbit, funded, fed information about schedules and habits and weaknesses. Maybe someone wants to hit Bill through his private life. Maybe an old link in the con artist network wants to drag Haley back into the circle. Or worst of all, maybe Lynette has found something that will force Bill to pay attention, and the $17,000 invoice is simply the doorway into Haley's home. When Haley looks at that paper, she no longer sees legal fees. She sees a warning that her new life can crack with a single touch. She is furious at herself for ever believing marriage to Bill was an unbreakable shield. Bill may be powerful, but Bill also has a limited reputation, image, political reach. All of it depends on controlling the narrative. Haley cannot even be sure Bill truly knows nothing, or whether he is pretending not to know so he can watch her reaction. Men like Bill do not like surprises. They like tests, traps, the moment when someone else makes a mistake in front of them. If Bill has already begun to doubt, Lynette only needs one more nudge to turn that doubt into conviction that Haley is a liability. And if Bill decides Haley is a liability, love gets replaced by arithmetic. Haley fears that more than she fears losing money. She fears the day Bill looks at her like a case to manage instead of a wife to protect. While Haley is being tightened inside the noose of her past, Chelsea takes the opposite route. She chooses to publicize her happiness as a way of claiming control before the chaos swallows her. Chelsea stuns Bill with major news, and what makes the atmosphere dangerous is not just the content, it is the timing. Bill is already standing in the middle of too many wars at once. A young wife he must protect from rumors, a visitor in his office carrying the scent of trouble, and now his daughter stepping in with an announcement strong enough to shake the family's pulse. Maybe it is only romantic an engagement decision that sounds innocent on paper, but in Fairmont Crest, no decision is ever only romantic. An engagement is a declaration, a position on the board, a public commitment that forces everyone else to respond. Chelsea and Madison decide to try long distance, Madison leaving for Copenhagen for a year of research while Chelsea stays behind to take care of her family during a difficult stretch. And that very difficulty is what makes people question the rush. Why now? If love is strong, is an engagement necessary immediately? Or is this Chelsea building an anchor for herself, forcing the world to hold still so she will not collapse as everything around her accelerates toward disaster? In Bill's eyes, a fast engagement could be joy, but it could also be a warning sign that his daughter is trying to outrun fear with a life-changing decision. Bill hates helplessness, hates being unable to shield his child from invisible threats, and that rage can misfire aimed not only at circumstances, but at Chelsea herself for daring to shift her future before he can control the fallout. If what Chelsea is about to say connects to a deeper truth, something that could rattle the entire family, then the engagement starts to feel like a coat thrown over a bleeding wound. Chelsea may truly be happy, and she may also be terrified of losing Madison as the distance begins to feel like a cliff. A promise ring can be a vow, it can also be a lock. Chelsea is left asking herself whether she is locking in love or locking herself away from the fear of being abandoned. The fractures spread like a chain reaction when Donnie and Andre are interrupted by two uninvited guests. The shock is not that someone shows up. It is the sensation that they have been watched. Some entrances are so deliberate you can feel they are not random, the steady steps. The eyes that do not search but claim, the confidence of people who came to collect a debt or demand a truth. Donnie already lives in a constant burn of anger at herself, anger at the choices that trapped her, anger at her own limits in a world where everyone wears a mask. Andre carries a different kind of anger as fuel, pushing him to protect Donnie and control the narrative so it serves his aims. When the uninvited guests appear, every secret they have tried to keep becomes fragile. If Chelsea is bringing Bill major news, could it tie back to these strangers? Maybe the guests arrived to deliver a message, present evidence, or force Donnie and Andre into a choice between silence and explosion. Hard choices create ugly reactions. Donnie may want to deny everything, tear it all apart, run, but running only teaches people where to chase. Andre may want to turn confrontation into a chess match, using power, law, or a cold counter-strike, but the harder he pushes, the more fear leaks through. Their fear is the same in one crucial way, being exposed at the exact moment they are weakest. If they truly have been watched, then someone has built a stage, picked the timing, cast the roles, and is now waiting for them to perform the script already written. That is the core of a real power play, not fists, but forcing your opponent to react on instinct, then using that instinct as evidence to destroy them. Elsewhere in this cracked open world, Ashley and Derek move along separate paths but breathe the same unstable air. Grayson shares the details of the mysterious call during a night out, and the mystery is not only what was said, it is the fact that he tells Ashley instead of going straight to someone with authority. Ashley is no longer naive enough to believe secrets always come from good intentions. She has learned the hard way that people keep secrets because it benefits them. If that call connects to a lab technician or to test results that were altered, then it is not just Grayson's private problem, it is a piece of a larger puzzle involving twisted decisions, distorted truths, and the subtle ways someone can ingest data and change lives. Ashley feels her anger trigger in the most familiar way. Anger at being placed in the position of having to trust or not trust. Anger at being the one who pays for someone else's silence. If Grayson is telling the truth, he is pulling her toward danger. If he is lying, he is using her. Either way, Ashley is the one backed against the wall, forced to decide whether to expose this or swallow it. Derek stands near the edge of it all, but he is not untouched. Every rumor about tests, every suggestion of manipulation hits the same raw nerve in him: failure, purposelessness, the feeling of being written out of his own story. Derek might try to act cold, detach himself from Ashley to survive, but deep inside him something bitter smolders. Anger at being excluded, anger at having his life decided by other people. Anger at no longer holding power in the narrative of his own identity. Then Jen arrives, appearing like a well-meaning force, but potentially functioning as a spark. Jen tries to reconcile Leslie and Derek, suggesting Leslie hire Derek at the free clinic after Ashley rejects Leslie. On the surface, it reads as kindness, an attempt to help Derek regain purpose. Yet Jen has a kind of intervention that makes people suspicious. She always knows how to place others in the right position according to her logic. And sometimes right is simply another word for useful. Leslie does not want to hire Derek because she finds him rude, but Leslie is also the type to turn personal emotion into strategy. If she feels disrespected, she may use rejecting Derek as a way to reassert control. The more Jen pushes reconciliation, the more Leslie may harden, the more she may want to prove she does not need anyone's pity. Derek can react the same way. When a man who has lost his purpose is placed in front of a woman who feels insulted, every attempt at peace can turn into humiliation. Jen may pour gasoline without meaning to, reopening wounds, restating old misunderstandings, forcing immediate choices while both people are already full of resentment. If Derek accepts the job, he could be pulled into trouble even more dangerous, controlled by Leslie, turned into a pawn in a larger war. Placed in a setting where one small mistake becomes an excuse to destroy him. If Derek refuses, he sinks deeper into uselessness, becomes easier to provoke, more likely to seek escape in a darker direction. Jen may believe she is saving Derek, but in a world where every good intention becomes politicized, saving someone can also be a way of attaching them to a rope and pulling them where you need them to go. All these threads braid together with the same material: anger and the fear of being exposed. Haley fears exposure, so her anger becomes cold strategy. Bill fears losing control, so his anger can sharpen into ruthless doubt. Chelsea fears losing the woman she loves, so her anger can become a rushed, desperate decision. Johnny and Andre fear being cornered, so their anger can explode into counterattack, and that counterattack can become the opening others exploit. Ashley fears manipulation, so her anger turns into painful clarity. Derek fears meaninglessness, so his anger risks becoming self-destruction. Leslie fears being dismissed, so her anger becomes power. Jen fears being irrelevant, so her anger hides under the phrase, "I'm only trying to help." And at the center of it all, Lynette stands like a needle small, sharp, needing only one perfect point of contact to burst every illusion. If the $17,000 bill is merely a lawful excuse for Lynette to get close, then her next move will not be about money at all. It will be about forcing Haley into a choice. Do something immoral to protect her secret, betray someone to save herself, or strike first in a way that destroys her ability to keep wearing the mask of Bill's perfect wife. The most frightening part is that Haley is already starting to consider that option as realistic, because when people get shoved against the wall, they stop asking whether they should do the unforgivable. They start asking how to survive. When Bill notices the smallest crack in Haley's composure, he may begin asking questions Haley cannot answer fast enough. When Chelsea declares an engagement, she may accidentally create the kind of public event that convinces the uninvited guests the time is right to attack. When Grayson admits the mysterious call, he may have opened a door that leads to an entire chain of falsified test results. When Jen pushes reconciliation, she may have positioned Leslie and Derek exactly where another scheme can use them as bait. And in the moment everything still seems scattered, one terrifying truth starts to take shape. Someone is pulling strings, using private anger to generate a collective storm. If Lynette takes one more step forward, Haley will not be choosing between paying or refusing to pay. She will be choosing between keeping her new life or returning to her old instincts. And that decision will unfold at the exact moment Bill's suspicion sharpens, at the exact moment Chelsea makes her engagement public, at the exact moment Donnie and Andre sense eyes on them. At the exact moment every character stands at the cliff's edge, one slip is enough to drag them all down. And the reason viewers will keep watching is not because they wonder who will win, but because they wonder who will be the first to do something unforgivable, so they won't be crushed.